Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. This is where this video is going, isn't it? Oh my gosh. Welcome back to my booktube channel. We are going to be going over some updated fantasy recommendations. So I did a video, which was actually one of my first videos in 2020, or the first videos of my channel, basically. It was a kind of like my top 5 fantasy series, and I want to do more fantasy recommendations. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 fantasy recommendations that I don't really talk about, or that I haven't talked about lately that much. And especially like books that are good to read during quarantine. We need some immersive fantasy books to get us through this time. So yeah, today I'll be going over 5 of those books that I have recommended for quarantine fantasy, all that kind of fun stuff. So we're gonna go into that in just a moment. Whoa. But if you do want to help me out, make sure to like this video. I'm giving you time right now. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you do want to directly support me in the best way possible, click share, copy that link, and send this to a friend that needs some fantasy book recommendations at this time. Let's get into my first fantasy recommendation. Okay, so my first recommendation is one that I actually haven't talked about much on my channel, which is surprising because I've read the first book in this series so many times, and I love it so much. So here, I guess, is finally my time, and that is Magnus Chasing the Gods of Asgard, The Sword of Summer, but it's just the series is called Magnus Chasing the Gods of Asgard by Rick Riordan. This is a urban fantasy with it's kind of like a real world with all these different worlds inside of it, and there's all this like Norse mythology gods and all that fun stuff. So yeah, this book is really cool, and I really enjoy it, and it's so witty and clever, and I really do enjoy this. So let me tell you guys about what this series is about. So ever since this one night, Magnus has been left motherless, and he's basically an orphan on the streets, homeless, because his mother was killed by wolves one night when he was young. But one day, his uncle kind of seeks him out and starts claiming and starts talking about all this like weird Norse mythology stuff, and that he needs to claim his birthright. And so Magnus is all skeptical, and so his life is suddenly upturned as he learns his place in the world. He dies and goes to this new world where he has to like go on this wild goose chase to save the world from doomsday. There's Asgard, there's gods, and there's just this magical quest to stop the world from basically collapsing, and Magnus has to die to do that. So this is just a really fun adventure book, I would say, and it's kind of like an urban adventure. So like they're going through the human world and the giant world, and they go on this crazy adventure to like the elf world, the dwarf world, and he tags along with his 2 friends. They go on trying to, you know, find all these magical items to stop, I guess, the world from crumbling. It is such a really good story, and what I really enjoy about this series in both of these books that I've read so far is the cleverness and the humor, and just everything about this is so perfect, like especially the humor. Like it's just so funny, and I think this is way better than Percy Jackson, the other series that Rick Riordan has written, that a lot of people overhype. But I just think this is so funny, you know. It's just like the gods are so like witty and like humorous, and it just makes for an all-around really good read, and it's just such a funny and light book. All of his books in this series are just so adventurous, like running around doing magical quests and gods, and it's just so clever, so creative, and so original. So I definitely recommend this book. Okay, so this next book I read a while back, or like this year, so I've talked about it in some like wrap-ups, but I really haven't talked about it much other than that. So this recommendation I have for you guys is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. And since this cover is white, it's gonna get blown out by my studio lights, but there's the cover there. So I recommend this book for its really entrapping world. That's not a word, but like immersive world. The world is so magical, and I really like that. And it's also just really kind of like political in like a good way. So I'll just kind of dive into all my thoughts after I give you guys a little brief synopsis about the book. So this book is about this girl named Jude, and she and her 2 sisters were kidnapped into the High Court of Fairy when she was 7, and so she was stolen to live in the High Court of Fae. And so 10 years later, Jude wants to become a part of the fairy court and wants to belong there, because she's kind of just treated as a mortal, and she's not like treated, she doesn't belong, like she's just kind of an outcast. She is sought on becoming a part of the council. So she's trying to find her way into the High Court of Fairy, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. There is people trying to stop her directly, like Prince Cardan, one of the youngest and wickedest princes of the king, is trying to stop her, and she he hates her, and there's just like this really kind of like, I don't even know how to really explain this, but like there's just like this political aspect, and not very political, but there's just, she's basically trying to fight for herself and to become a part of the court. I'm not really good at explaining, but this book was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It's better than it seems, I think. Like when I read the synopsis, I was like, but when I like started to read it, it got a lot better because all of this kind of like really interesting elements were brought in, and like there's all these kinds of like twists and challenges for the character, and it just feels like it was just such a great fight. You had to root for the characters were all amazing, and the world, like I read this a while back, so I'm not like remembering it as vividly, but the world, the setting, the characters, it was all just so beautifully written, and I cannot wait to read the next book. But yeah, that is my next recommendation, The Cruel Prince by Holly Book. Okay, so my next recommendation is something that I was talking about more of like towards the beginning of the year, and then I kind of stopped talking about it, so I'm going to kind of go over it a little bit again, and that is the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. And if you guys have been watching from the beginning, you guys would know that this is one of my absolute favorite series. I really did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. This is also Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it's just such a immersive, emotional, real, gripping story, and this is just one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. Like, it's just so beautiful. It doesn't even feel like a book. It feels like a story, and just feels like a adventure, and it feels like, it just feels like more than a book, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's how much I enjoyed this. Let's kind of get into a synopsis. So it's like an epic fantasy. This is set with Feyre. She is poor. She's like barely surviving through this one winter, when one day she sees this wolf trying to kill a deer because she's trying to like hunt the deer for food, and she sees this wolf about to kill the deer, so she tries to kill the wolf as well, but she soon realizes that the wolf is not a wolf, and it is a high fae. Later in the week, a high fae barges on Feyre's door, declaring that she must go to the world of the fae with him by the treaty of the fae. She must go with him and be a captor of him to kind of like serve out that penalty. And so she has to go into this new world, and not everything is how it seems. So when she arrives at the manor, she soon starts to realize that she's in love with the captor Tamlin, and also there's this deep curse and this kind of like these dark evils stirring. So first she must explore this romance with Tamlin, and also figure out what all these evils are doing and try to stop them. And so this is just a really good book, and it gets so much better as the series goes on. This is seriously such an amazing series, and it's just like full of dark and ancient evils and curses and like all this really fun stuff, and I really love how real it is, how mature it is. Like, it's not like a fun middle grade book, it's like just real and beautifully written, and I really could not stop reading this, so I have to reread this soon. It's just an amazing series, and I totally recommend that you guys check it out. Okay, so another kind of series slash book that I don't really talk about on my channel that I should talk about more is the Land of Stories series by Chris Colfer, and y'all can see how old this book is. Literally, like, it's just so old and so crumbly because I've read this book so many times. I always enjoy this, at least the first book. I've never read the whole series. I've read like the first 3 or 4 books, and they're all really good. But yeah, I feel like I haven't talked about this much because this was definitely a really important middle grade series that like kind of made me love reading a lot more, and it was just one of the first books that really influenced me to read more. So it was like a really impactful series on me, and this kind of like really interesting fairy tale fantasy world was so like enveloping and like just amazing. It just pulled me in so much, and there's just so much interest for this book. So let's talk about it. But basically, Alex and Connor, Alex the girl and Connor, they're twins, right? And they are in the human world. They're just like, their life kind of sucks. Like, their dad died, and they're kind of like miserable, and they're not living with much. Like, they're kind of like in poverty-ish. But one day, their grandma gifts them with a book that starts humming and glowing as like they bring it along with themselves. Alex keeps this to herself, and she starts to experiment with all of the different things about the book, and it's just glowing, and she starts like, she's able to stick her hand through the book. One day, she falls through the book into this fairy tale world, and Connor comes running, chasing after her. Basically what happens is they are transported into this magical world with no way of getting out. And the whole premise of this book is getting out and getting back to their family. So what they're doing is they have to collect, which is the title, Land of Stories, the wishing spell of the first book. The whole kind of premise of this book is to collect all the items for the wishing spell. So they have to go across all of the kingdoms, gaining magical items from all the fairy tales, like Cinderella's glass slipper or like a lock of Rapunzel's hair. Like they're trying to collect all these different magical items to brew the magical potion called the wishing spell to get back home. And so this is a really, really, really good read. I feel like a lot of my recommendations for you today are adventure reads because I feel like in self-isolation, adventure reads are the best to read because they're just like you're venturing through this magical world and you're trying to collect all these items, and it's just so fun because you're revisiting a lot of fairy tales, and he has revisioned a lot of the characters, and he's just made this so original in a non-original way. Like it's just so cool, and I really admire the author for like the really cool writing style, and just it's amazing. So I really recommend this. It's just a really all-around fun middle grade book that is just really light and really intriguing, I guess, like with the setting. So yeah, let's go on to the next recommendation. So this next book that I'm going to be talking about, I actually read very recently and talked about it in my last video, but I'm going to talk about it again in this video for people that are new. So the next recommendation is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmer, and I recommended this because just the tone of the story and like the setting, it just kind of matches the feel of the time that we're in. And so yeah, that's kind of my only reason. It's just kind of in the feel, it's in the tone, you know what I'm saying? And so basically this book, it follows two main characters, Harper and Ren. Ren has been cursed and lives in this alternate world called Emberfall, where his political power is receding and the people are starting to rebel, and these evil troops are kind of arriving on the horizon about to destroy his kingdom. He's cursed, so basically every season he resets, I guess, because he has to like find someone to love him. So girls are brought in every season, and he has to try to find the girl that will love him and break the curse, and he turns into this monster. This is why it's called the Beauty and the Beast retelling. That's kind of what's happening in Emberfall. Harper, who has a brother that is getting into massive trouble, crime troubles, and Harper's mom, who is dying of cancer, suddenly gets taken away from her family, so she can't help her family anymore, and is one of those girls that gets taken to Emberfall to break the curse. There's these two sides of the story where Harper is trying to get back to save her family because they are in deep, deep trouble when she left. And then Ren, who wants Harper to stay and break the curse for her and also help her take back his political power. And so these two forces just clash, and it just makes for an amazing read. I read this with Lily the Book Nerd for a buddy read, and it was just a really amazing immersive story because like it's just like the tension in it with like Harper's family back at home while she's in Emberfall, like they're dying and like she's there. Like it's just, there's a lot of tension. I really enjoyed this book, this story. The characters were so well thought out. The setting was so amazing, and I just feel like it got better and better as it went. And by the end, I had fallen in love with this book. So definitely check out A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I'm not gonna get into too much of my thoughts today because I talked about them in my last video for 5 minutes. So yeah. Okay, so that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys kind of learned from this. I have talked about a lot of these books, but again, like I hope you learned some new recommendations from this. If you've stayed with me from the beginning, you might not have if you've stayed with me from the beginning, you would have known more about these books. But again, I hope I could like help you out with some book recommendations during this time. Book recommendation videos are probably one of my favorites to make because I just love talking about books and just recommending them because they're amazing things. If you guys like this video and if you learned something, make sure to leave a like. I'm giving you time right now. And if you thought this video was helpful and that you would want to send it to others, make sure you do share this video. Share, copy that link, do whatever you need. Send this to some of your friends. And also, if you have not subscribed already, let's hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 850 subscribers, and I would really love your support. Any subscribe would totally be appreciated by me. Comment down below, have you read any of the books that I have read? What are your fantasy recommendations for me? Any other fantasy book talk you want to talk about with me? I'd love to hear you out and reply back to you guys, or reply to most of you guys. And if you want more recommendation videos, check out my last recommendation video. It was a dystopian recommendation video. I went over 5 dystopian recommendations that I had for you guys, and that was a really fun video, and I just really wanted to go over my favorite dystopians. So yeah, definitely check out that video. But that's all I have to say, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy. Love you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys, love you.